Lies of P has completely obliterated every one of the expectations that I had for it. I mean, it staggered my expectations and hit it with a visceral attack and just exploded it into ooey gooey bits. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. Though I am a huge fan of every From Software game from Demon's Souls on, I really haven't been a fan of the Souls-like genre. I really just feel like the games are kind of sloppy in comparison to From Software's masterful titles. Now, when I first got into Souls games, I tried looking around. I tried playing the old Lords of the Fallen, The Surge, and these games just really never enticed me very much. So I really stopped playing Soulslikes, and really the main entertainment that I ever got out of them was Iron Pineapple's videos. So going into Lies of P, my expectations weren't super high, but wow, this game is amazing. And if you are a fan of From Software's works, I think you should definitely play Lies of P. Now, it's not all perfect though, and I will get into that. So let's just break it down. I got 3 things that I absolutely love about Lies of P, and one overarching issue that we can get into at the end. Now, first off, let's talk about the gameplay, because if it's not fun, why bother? The combat in Lies of P feels absolutely amazing. It's really fast, yet it's still weighty. It's kind of this great balance of the acrobatics that you could get from some more of the flowier Sekiro type From Software games, but it also has this kind of old school From Software weight too. You know, the Demon's Souls, Dark Souls umph to a lot of the combat. And this dynamic just feels fantastic in the minute-to-minute gameplay. It seems like your character is on the more Dark Souls side of the spectrum, where the enemies are on the Bloodborne and Sekiro side of the spectrum, which I really like a lot. Some people have been having an issue with your speed in comparison to the enemy's speed, but I've been enjoying it. It feels like I'm not able to run away from any of my opponents, and I really have to be engaged. And speaking of enemies, though the variety isn't off the charts, I will say what's there is very entertaining. Even the small fodder enemies are very dangerous, which is a feeling that I've almost been missing in some of the later From Software titles. And I like that a lot of the enemies are humanoid style, honestly. In every Souls game that I've played, my favorite style of enemies are not the big, bombastic, crazy, out of the world, oversized bosses. I truly enjoy a one-on-one fight with a humanoid-sized enemy. It's so engaging, and this game does it fantastically. Now, all these enemies have really interesting and kind of choppy attack patterns, but it makes sense because you're fighting puppets for the most part. So with that comes a new riposte and perfect guard system. Now, these mechanics aren't perfect, there's definitely some flaws, but the concept is very interesting. The idea that the health recover mechanic doesn't just happen automatically, that it has to be happening during a guard, but also a perfect guard increases your stagger on your opponent, creates this kind of ebb and flow of whether or not you want to just take some chip damage and try to regain that, which is not very difficult, honestly, or if you want to go for that perfect guard so you can really break down that posture. It made me have to really think about which way I wanted to take on a boss and if I was going to be able to pull off these perfect guards, because the timing is definitely interesting, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Now, speaking of boss fights, they are plentiful in this game, and they are super difficult. These are truly some of the toughest bosses that I've fought in any Souls-like period from any company. I mean, these are the types of bosses where you have no healing items left and you think the fight is finally over and it's actually just the second stage. I haven't had that type of feeling from these types of games in a long time. And one mechanic that is really cool that keeps you in those fights is the mechanic where your final vial of your healing items will recharge as you fight. So if you play well, you can actually keep healing and keep in the battle. It is super engaging, and it always makes me think that I can just play perfectly for a little bit, heal up, and then I can kind of breathe a little bit. Super fun mechanic, and it helps with these insanely difficult boss battles. Also, not just the main bosses, but the mini bosses. I mean, I've almost had a harder time with some of them than the big dogs. And mini bosses are everywhere. So not only are you getting tons of regular bosses, but you're getting all these real tough mid-sized enemies all over the map also. And that really brings me into the second thing that I absolutely love about Lies of P, and that is the map and the environment. The game world that Lies of P has created has truly hit every nostalgia button in my body. It really reminds me of OG From Software. Now, yeah, it's a little bit linear for sure, but it still has a lot of those classic hidden areas and pathways and secrets and all that great stuff. And the way it loops back on itself is just really great. Obviously, of course, looping back to, the spawn point so you can have a shortcut to boss areas, but not just that. After hours and hours of playing the game and progressing forward, I looped back around to the HUD area, Hotel Krat. I haven't been impacted like that from game design since maybe looping back around to Firelink Shrine. It was just an absolute chef's kiss. And on that note, they have all the other great classic tropes from Miyazaki-style games. The real painful things, long boss runs, lakes of poison, giant holes that you have to jump down, which I absolutely love. If you make a Souls game, you gotta give me a giant hole. Pause. And in fact, honestly, make the hole more holy in this game. Make it deeper. Put items on the other side that I have to risk my life to get to. Make it painful. I want deeper, bigger, larger holes in Soulslikes. Please, pause. Nah, man, but what I'm really trying to say is that this game's map design has just hit me in all the nostalgia centers. It is so awesome. I've been loving it. It's just, the exploration just really takes me back. Personally, look, man, I know everybody gets mad when I say this, but Elden Ring is not my favorite From Software game. I'm sorry. Boop, boop. Sound the alarms. Set it off. This guy doesn't like Elden Ring. Oh my gosh. No, that's not what I'm saying. I like Elden Ring, man. But there's certain things about it that I don't like as much as the older ones. One thing is the open world. I know, I'm sorry. That's one thing that everybody loves so much. I really like a focused Souls game. And Elden Ring is one of the most focused open worlds ever created. But really, my favorite part of Elden Ring is the third act of the game where you're not on torrent anymore and you're just kind of exploring the Halg Tree and Lindell and all those areas. That's great. I love that. But just traveling around these open areas and stuff, it's not for me, man. I love this focused style of game. And Lies of P has taken me back, man. And honestly, I just hope that From Software's next title can have a similar map design to Lies of P. If not, maybe a little bit more complex, a little bit less linear, honestly. I don't think we'll ever really just get anything as good as Dark Souls 1 again, but it is what it is. Anyways, rant aside, there's also some major quality of life improvements to this style of map and fast traveling. One thing I absolutely love, and I don't think it takes away from the quality of the game at all, is showing where NPC Quest Lines are. Showing me the Stargazer, which, by the way, sick name for a bonfire. But yeah, show me which Stargazer I gotta fast travel to finish this NPC Quest line. Please, it's really not that bad. It's not taking anything away from me. I don't know, maybe people like the ambiguous stuff, but I've been enjoying knowing where to go for these NPC Quest Lines. It's pretty nice. And that actually brings me to the third and final reason why I absolutely love Lies of P, and that is just the vibe, man. This environment is just oozing with atmosphere. The world that they've set up based upon Pinocchio just feels so unique. When I'd first seen this game, I really thought it was going to be just some Bloodborne ripoff. And that is so not what this game is, man. This game has its own unique feeling, great lore behind it. You know what? I find myself reading a lot more descriptions and notes and stuff like that in this game than I really have in most other Soulslikes, honestly. They're nice, they're short, they're sweet, they're engaging. I really like it. It's not making me read whole paragraphs. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just some Neanderthal, but yeah, I like nice little blips that give me an info on the lore. But that's not the only type of vibe that I'm talking about that I love with this game. Maybe I'm just a masochist, but the punishment of this game is so refreshing. I haven't been frustrated with these games in a long time. And there's a lot of people that don't really like that feeling, but I like it, man. I like when these games make me want to give up. And this game has definitely done that. Some of these bosses are insanely difficult. I'm talking throw my hands in the air, scoffing, walking away for a minute type of difficulty. And though it hurts in the moment, when I think of it, I truly haven't had that type of feeling from a Souls game in years. probably since Sekiro, honestly. This game has forced me to get good, and that is what I want from a Souls-like. But then in between those moments of insane difficulty, I need to kind of chill out and enjoy the game a little bit. So right back to another great vibe, the voice acting. Man, I don't think everybody really recognizes how important the voice acting is in these Souls games. I mean, I just played Bloodborne and Sekiro super recently, and this game obviously takes a lot of notes from it, and both of those games have some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in anything, period. The performances in Bloodborne in particular are absolutely chilling, and I would say Lies of P stands to par with both of these games. Very good, very convincing voice acting. I really love it, and not just the people talking and having conversations with you. The monsters, the sounds they make are so gut-wrenching. The staticky, creepy, twitchy puppet voices and movements and everything just really get under your skin. It's really great. I love it. I mean, I've definitely been jump scared by this game a couple times. Maybe I'm just a wimp, but there's some moments where I've like jumped significantly out of my seat. So yeah, the creepy factor is there, but just on every level, the voice acting and the soundscapes and everything in this game sets the vibe perfectly. And the cherry on top when it comes to setting the vibe is the weird, ambiguous mechanics to the game, like humanity and lying. Now, I just gotta say, man, I'm one of those guys that absolutely loves those weird mechanics in Souls games like world tendency and dragon rot and stuff like that. I love it. I love how it's not explained that well and you don't really know how it's affecting your game. I love that stuff. In this game, with its humanity mechanic, I don't even really know what humanity does. I haven't looked up any tutorials or anything like that. I don't want to. I just want to kind of let it be there in the background and try to figure it out. And lying, I mean, I don't know. Should I lie to everybody? Should I lie to nobody? I don't know. I've just been kind of going through. I've been lying a lot, actually, and I love that. Because now I want to play the game again and do the exact opposite and only tell the truth. These types of mechanics add depth to the game and it sets the vibe perfectly. However, like I said in the beginning, it is not all perfect. I do have some issues with the game, and when it really boiled down to it, it was just kind of an overarching issue with Lies of P that I found, and that is that the game feels a little sloppy compared to From Software games. Now, yes, Lies of P is created by a small indie developer, and this is their first attempt at a Souls-like. So for me to even be comparing them to a From Software game is commendable. Every other Souls-like, I do not compare them to From Software games because they're not even close. They get their own special little B category where, yeah, they can be fun. I don't really enjoy them that much, but this game I do. I enjoy a lot. So I'm gonna make some comparisons to From Software games. Naturally, that's what happens when you start competing with the big boys. So certain mechanics in particular definitely feel a little bit loosey-goosey compared to the big dogs. The biggest glaring one for me that I've noticed is the perfect guard system. It is way too unforgiving. Now, I can already hear the comments right now. It's a skill issue. You need to get good. The perfect guarding isn't flawed, blah, 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 blah. And to that, I have to say, you're probably right. I probably just need to play the game a little bit more, get good, and learn how to time the perfect guards. However, it feels like the perfect guard is just too tight to accomplish consistently on most enemies. Now, I do also understand that these enemies are like puppets and stuff like that, and they're choppy and their animations are weird and hard to time. I get it, but it really just feels super unforgiving compared to its obvious influence in Sekiro. Sekiro's deflect system is perfect in my opinion, and obviously they couldn't just copy it one-to-one, but this game is a little bit unforgiving with it for sure. Also, another thing with this game that I do have to mention is that it feels just like a little bit slippery. Like the movement is really good, but there's something that's just a little bit off, especially on the platforming areas. Now look, I understand that I just asked for bigger holes and more holier holes, pause. And maybe they didn't implement that because this game's movement is definitely not as rock solid and as tight as From Software's. hours. I have fallen to my death more times than I would like to admit in this game. And maybe I'm just coping by complaining about it. Who knows? But what I do know is that's basically all the complaints that I have about the game, is that it just feels a little bit sloppy, and due to that sloppiness, it can make the game a little bit more difficult than it may need to be. It's like this. From Software's games are so rock solid in my opinion. They're like one of those pieces of metal that's perfectly machined to where you can drop it into a slot in another piece of metal and it just falls down and seemingly disappears without any visual indicators of where it's really at. Their games are just perfectly made in my opinion. And it's really just due to years and years and years of perfecting this formula that they've created with their style of game. So for the developers of Lies of P to get this close on their first attempt is absolutely mind-boggling. It is like if that piece of machined metal just had a slight little burr where you could feel just if you ran your hand across where the metal was at, but if you looked at it, you couldn't see. If you just look at it, it looks just like the From Software game, but only when you get up close and personal with it, then you can kind of recognize some of the issues with it. That is truly an achievement to behold, especially if you're a From Software fan. I urge you to play Lies of P if you've been hesitant on it. I've been having an absolute blast, and this game has absolutely opened my mind to the possibility of playing more Souls-like in the future. I kind of want to go back and play Thymesia or whatever that game was called, or maybe when the new Lords of the Fallen game comes out, maybe I'll check that out because it looks kind of cool too. I don't know. But what I do know is that anytime I play any of those games now, I'm gonna be comparing them to Lies of P because it has absolutely raised the bar for every other Souls-like out there. Lies of P is truly the one. It is him. It is Himothy. If you try to step up to the plate and you're not From Software, you might not be that guy, pal.
Okay? You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.